Hello, welcome to Wildwood Teaching. I'm Nicole Trevillis-Frable, and I am very excited because today marks video number 1 on nature journaling. We are going to do a series of about 3 or 4 videos the whole month spent on nature journaling with preschoolers. And now the reason we're taking the time to talk so much about nature journaling is because I think that nature journaling, along with, say, sit spots, a floor book, is one of those anchor routines that you can build the rest of your outdoor program around. So once you have nature journaling down, you have a large piece of an outdoor program and you can bounce other things off of the nature journal. So it's worth taking the time to really think about how it fits into any outdoor program. So lots of professionals use journals. So you can talk about artists taking a sketchbook into nature, scientists, naturalists, writers. I have a writing journal from many, many years ago. And they use these journals to record observations. Sometimes through those observations, they're just practicing. They're practicing how they might want to draw something. They're practicing how they might want to capture something they see in the world. Sometimes those observations can turn into something bigger. So for a scientist, something you observe might lead to a question, a kernel of an idea that leads to a larger study. A quick sketch for an artist might lead later to a more involved watercolor painting. Some quick observational note about human behavior or animal behavior or the scenery could be something that a writer uses later in a novel as a description or part of a characterization. So they are observation, they are practice, they are ideas for later. And for preschoolers, when you talk about using it with young children, that means that your nature journal can have a science connection, it can have an art connection, it can have a social emotional connection, it can have a connection to emergent literacy. And so we're going to break it down, a little bit. Let's talk first about science. So when children are taking their nature journals into the woods, when they are making a practice, a regular practice of using the journals, they are practicing close observation. They are practicing their perception. They are practicing inquiry. Right? What interested you? So oftentimes when a child puts something in a nature journal, I will ask them, why did you draw that? What made you want to put that particular item in your nature journal? And sometimes that's because, well, it's yellow and yellow is my favorite color. But sometimes it can lead to a little bit of inquiry. So, a child picked out a fern leaf the other day and was drawing the fern leaf and noticed really tiny, which I didn't notice, little orange dots on the leaf. So that's a question of, what are those orange dots? How did they get there? Also, the act of putting something in your nature journal and then perhaps sharing it or not sharing it with other people can help you understand a little bit more about the science of what's going on in the world. Your nature journal can also be an artistic expression, right? How do you see the world? And what kind of art media are you going to use to capture that, again, either for yourself or for someone else, which is where that social emotional piece comes in, where you're processing something, right? And sometimes feelings about how you are feeling about being in nature, about seeing a particular something, experiencing a particular something. It can be expressed through art. Children can also share their journal entries with each other. And that is a way of communicating, a way of talking about the science, but also of sharing a piece of yourself. This is what I found interesting. What did you find interesting? Great, now I know a little bit more about you and how you look at the world. So that's fostering that connection to the natural world and to other children, other adults within our classroom community. Also, if you are looking at that communication piece, that's where the literacy piece comes in, right? Anytime you are putting something on paper, either because you want to remember it later, there is a certain aspect to what do I need to include on that paper so that I do remember it later. So there is a practice of going back to what we've drawn earlier in the nature journal. Do you know what that is, why you drew it? Do you remember what you were trying to communicate? Yes or no? And that might be something to change later. Maybe you're more detailed in your drawings. Maybe that's where you're starting to add some letters or ask a teacher to help you with a dictation. Again, that might be something that you are putting out to other children, that you need to remember it enough that you are talking to somebody else about it. We always date our journal entries because that's an important part of the communication. If you're looking at how things change over the seasons, we want to know, when did we see this particular item in the forest? Because you can encourage reflection on that by going back to previous entries. How has the world changed? How has nature changed? Why didn't we see this particular thing before? Or maybe we did, but you just didn't notice it. Why are you noticing things differently now? And then the major benefit, I think, of nature journaling. Yes, you have all of these benefits within science, within art, within social emotional learning, within literacy, but also as a teaching tool. I find it engaging for the children. It's their book that they get to put what they want in it. It's flexible and adaptable as a teaching tool, and we'll get into that a little bit more in our later videos, but just have that in your head that this is a tool that you can use to springboard class investigation in science, to talk about art media, to practice literacy, and to really get subject specific or not. So you can really adapt it to the needs of your preschoolers and your teaching at the time. So as I said, we are going to continue with nature journaling in the next couple of weeks. But we are really just going to scratch the surface. So if this is something that you are interested in, we are on March 19th going to do a masterclass on journaling. It's going to be live, but also recorded if you can't make it live, where I'll ask you to bring your journals. We'll really get into the nitty-gritty of, how to introduce nature journals to children, and then some specific processes of how to get started, of ways to use a nature journal across your curriculum, and you'll have a lot of hands-on practice by writing in your own nature journal. So I hope that you will join me here next week when we're going to talk about some picture books that you might use to springboard nature journaling, to introduce it to the class. And then I hope that you will sign up for the masterclass. There's a link attached to this video, and join us for some really in-depth nature journaling practice. I will see you there.